fun day today. I've been out this morning, it's been raining on and off all day. It was freezing cold this morning as well, although not freezing, so freezing frost isn't too bad. Cold and wet is just unpleasant. But I went out and I bought a few things. I bought a tub and I have now mixed up my rust removing solution, and I have in there the foot pedal that I'd completely forgotten about that I needed to de-rust, and I've put in the fuel tank lid off my spare fuel tank just as an experiment to see how that comes up. I may actually put some of the solution inside the tanks to clean out any rust inside there, but it seems to be working. Not sure how long to leave stuff in there, but we'll see. So that's just the citric acid, washing soda and water and a bit of soap. It took me a while to add the citric acid. I had to do it bit by bit because it bubbles up, so you don't want it to overflow the little box. I bought spray paint for when I get up to the frame bits and pieces, and I didn't want to let the stupid thread thing beat me, so these are my previous attempts. You can see that one, I just ripped it to bits. Just really horrible steel. So I found a piece of, it's just cold rolled 16mm steel bar, not the best sort of stuff, and had another go at cutting a thread. I made a new tool, set everything up again carefully. I did run out of travel on this, which is super annoying. I forgot to wind it back before I started, but you can actually pick up the thread again if you're really careful. So I made this and that did the trick. So that screws into there and that fits on that taper. So you screw this in, give it a sharp whack with a hammer, that's what it says to do in the manual, and yep, it just pops straight off the taper. So another oil seal here, I'll have to see if I can get one of those, might as well replace them. Again, the bearing seems good, so that's fine. I'm not going to mess with that, because to do that you have to get this plate off, and apparently these are super tight. One of the restoration films of these shows someone using oxyacetylene basically to keep those up red hot before trying to undo them. I don't really want to have to mess around with that. I will give this case another clean up in the parts cleaner. There's still a bit of grime on it. And the reason I had to take all of that off was to be able to get to this, so I could replace the little R-clip and the missing washer. So that's what I've done there. That's where that came from. I never did find the washer. I'm pretty sure that was like that before I got into it. I can't see how I could have knocked that loose. So either somebody pulled that loose and never replaced it, or this has been a part before. I don't know. But that washer was nowhere to be found. The other thing I did this morning was, this is the website I was mentioning, CMSNL. They do all sorts of bikes, and they have these really good parts diagrams and also a parts list. And the parts list will even tell you what size all of the fasteners are, which is excellent. So I went through and I printed out all of the parts diagrams. So this is the tensioner. You can see here the little washer. That's what was missing. But these are excellent to know how everything needs to go back together. There's the clutch. I did buy new flange bolts for that today. I bought new screws for the oil pump. They're Allen head ones. They're inside the engine. You won't see those. These are high tensile flange bolts. They'll be good for the clutch. It is a bit tricky to print these out. So this is just a modern web page development thing where you can't always save the image and print it out. But what I've found is if the image is rendered on the screen, there should always be a way you can get to it. So I had to do some sort of jiggery pokery and figure out the URLs for the images and download those. I think there were 43 for this particular bike, so I used curl to download them. Then I spent an annoying amount of time trying to get them to print nicely because, I don't know, everything these days, software tries to be smart, pick what the best thing to do is, so it was screwing up the margins, and I ended up going back to the really old version of Paint and using that to print them out because it let me do what I wanted. So I've got those now, super handy. I've been trying to find out if you can actually buy JIS type screws in New Zealand. That's these. That's what Honda used. Turns out you can't. I've not found anywhere that has proper JIS screws like this. There is a place in Australia, there's places in the UK. I don't need to replace them all. So I think a lot of people replace them with hex head type things, but I want to keep it as original as possible. I've only got a few that are a bit mangled, like that one, and that would have been people in the past using the wrong sort of drivers on them. So the JIS drivers, they are a different shape. It's very subtle to a normal Phillips type driver, which is this one. So the JIS ones, it's a different angle. The Phillips ones are designed to cam out when the torque gets too high. So I think what I'll have to do is at some point buy just a few replacement screws. I don't need too many. I've got another thing in the ultrasonic, just cleaning that, the valve cover. I might put this through a few more times. I'm not sure. I think it's reasonably clean. I'm never going to get it perfect. I don't want it perfect. But that's all going well. So this is the crank out. It looks like it's got hot in the past. You can see the heat on it, unless that's just heat treatment on the things. I don't really know. But there's no play in the big ends, which is good. I don't know how these come apart. I'm not going to go that far. I just wanted to get in here to replace that. But the chain seems good. No damage there. I bought some oil to go in the bike. You have to get proper motorcycle oil because it's a wet clutch. This is what they recommend. I always get on well with this Penrite oil. It's Australian. Seems to work well. I've got gasket stuff. I bought some more fuel hose. This is proper Gates hose. I'm not quite sure what this other stuff is I got. They said it was fuel and ethanol proof, but we'll see. Anti-seize. I have got a lot of that stuff, but what I found last time was I'm running out of it, or it's going a bit strange. So I think this through the parts washer again quickly. It's the ultrasonic finished, and the next thing is to weld this up. Oh, bit of paintbrush in there. So I'm going to practice. I need to find some bits of scrap aluminium to practice on to figure out what sort of setting I need there, just to put a lump of weld on that. And then really I can I just have to wait. Basically I need to wait till I've got the new gasket set so I can start putting it back together. Bought some single-sided razor blades as well to help scrape some of the old gasket material off. Then I think the next thing, clutch plates are on the way. I think I mentioned that. Start cleaning up some of these other bits and pieces. I did just realize that this bike only has a center stand. It doesn't have a side stand. The parts manual does actually show a sort of kickstand, but mine doesn't have that. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, or I didn't notice any places where there seemed to be bits missing. So that's quite interesting. I'm going to turn that part around in the ultrasonic and start looking at some welding. I'm making good progress now. I've welded up the crack in here. I didn't try to make it invisible. I just wanted a good solid blob of weld on there with decent penetration on the inside and I did smooth it off just a little bit, just so it's not completely ugly. But welding castings like this is really hard. They just bubble up stuff. You can see where there's a few voids in the weld, which is just where there were impurities in it, and it's just really hard to get around that. I had it on fairly strong cleaning effect on the TIG, but still, I didn't go all the way to the edge. Like I mentioned, there is a tiny crack there. I may just seal these up. I might put a little bit of JB weld or something, just so there's not little holes there to attract dirt, and just smooth it over. But you can see that's much thicker there now, because before it curved in, I've left it flush. So that's good. Nothing distorted, which was good. I dragged a file just over the edge where the crack was, just in there, and it was fine. There was a little bit of a step, but it came right, and the two casings fit together nicely. Once there's a gasket and some gasket glue in there, it should be nice. Everything's pretty cleaned up. I'll see if I can get this oil seal as well. I might as well, I think I can pull that one out, knock that one out. Bearing is good. This is the neutral switch, that seems fine. I cleaned the contact on the inside. I should be able to get oil seals for these. On this side, when I welded it, everything heated up and the bearing dropped out, which was good, because then I was able to give that a good bath, clean that. Again, that bearing's fine. There's a needle bearing behind here, that's fine. And I've worked out where some of the oil goes. There's a little O-ring here that they say you have to replace when you replace the remove the oil pump, and in the manual it says it's a 6x3mm O-ring. This is completely flattened. I'm assuming it means a circular standard sort of O-ring, and this has just gone flat over the years. But that basically goes in there, and it seals against the oil pump. So this is the oil pump, fits on there, and you can see the oil outlet here lines up with this, and then so that needs to seal in there. I think it is supposed to be a proper round O-ring, because this, if you look at it carefully, it's not centered. I don't think it is a flat part like that. I think that is an O-ring that's just been flattened. So I'll replace that. But the oil goes up here and into this sort of gallery, and that's how some of it gets to the top here. I think what it's actually doing is running up here. I think it's hard to tell, but if you look at the head, you can see here how it kind of comes up, and there's that little passage, and that matches up to where the little dowels, hollow dowels are on the rockers. So they go that way. I think it's something like that. I'm not sure. But anything that looks like an oil passage, I have made sure is clean, not blocked up. Everything's been very well cleaned. Again, not perfect, but clean. So the oil goes up here. You can see the other side of the oil passage here. And this fills up with oil. The oil comes out here. And this is where that little T-piece fits into this. So it's in here somewhere. It's in a bag. There is a hole through there. A little pin goes through there, and a little sort of piece fits in there with a spring on it that pushes it out this way. And that's rotating, because that's the end of the crankshaft on here. But this is where the oil comes through. It comes through this hole and goes into the crankshaft, and then I'm assuming then, well, it must do, then goes into the big end bearings. So that's quite interesting. So I will replace that. I've got new screws for this, because getting these out was a real pain in the neck. But that goes back on there. I may give this a bit more of a clean, see if I can get some of this varnish out of it, just because you don't really want that coming loose and rattling around inside the engine. But that's the side cover for there. And think that's where I'm going to finish for the day. So didn't get too much done, but I got the main thing done, which was that welding, because that's really nerve-wracking, welding something like that, because you think, well, if I get this wrong, it's completely screwed. But like I say, that doesn't need to seal oil. I will just fill those holes with a little bit of epoxy just to keep it neat and tidy. This is cleaned up pretty well. So I'm waiting for the gasket set, and then I think I can actually start reassembling the engine. Gasket set and the cylinder block, of course, but I can assemble the whole bottom end. And I think I mentioned I put the missing R clip and a suitable washer in there. I've given that, is that left side, right side cover a good going over, got most of the varnish out of it, so that's much cleaner now. I just used little wire brushes on the Dremel. It worked pretty well. I think my towel's seen better days. Do you think head gardener would notice if I put that back in the bathroom? Probably not. And I put a little bit of JB weld just over the edges of my aluminium weld and just fill up some of the little pits. Like I say, that doesn't have to be oil tight or 100% oil tight. It just needs to be strong, and that's definitely fixed it now, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, it's just a matter of waiting for more bits now, I think, and put this thing, start putting it back together.